Hello, everybody. Welcome to Cosmic Metamorphosis. My name is Kat. Thank you for tuning in today. Um, Hope everybody is doing well and things are moving. Um, Very strong energies coming in from the sun. There's been a lot of respiratory issues, sinus issues going on, which is all the clearing, the clearing energies, especially your throat chakra. And I'm sorry I wasn't able to get out a video during, it's been a couple weeks since Christmas. Um, my hours at work have just been really weird, and I was closing basically 4 nights a week, and I didn't have time to get another video done. I worked all New Year's weekend, so today's my first day off that I can do a video, and I finally finished Alex Collier's December 16th of 2022, his number 172 webinar. So today that's what we're going to be talking about. I hope you all had, a wonderful holiday. I finally realized I got a community page under my Cosmic Metamorphosis channel. So now I'm able to like post a picture or put information instead of doing a video. So I don't know, I saw a few people saw it and gave it a thumbs up. So um, I'm just really excited that now, like, if I see certain things, I can take a picture and like post it on my page so y'all can see it. So thank goodness for that. And thank you to all the new subscribers. I really appreciate it. And and I just want you to know all this information comes from Alex Collier. And and basically, like, I don't take any credit for it, but during my videos, I do give my perspective and things that I have learned over many years of my life, and information that I would give to you as well. So I put in my 2 cents worth. But anyway, let's get started. Um, so this is Alex Collier's December 16th of 2022, number 172. Today is January 4th of 2023. Hopefully this year will be wonderful. I'm feeling it is. Um, Thank goodness, like, we have some blue skies. It's been really cold. We're getting another cold front. It was very cold last night here. But the sun's out today, so that's great. And I'm in a good mood. So let's get started. Alex says, ladies and gentlemen, hi, welcome. Welcome to the webinar today. I just want to say thank you to all of you for your continued support and your well wishes. And those of you who sent a donation, thank you so much. It is absolutely appreciated. I want to cover some things today. The rebuild of the world. I'm going to start that next week, and I've been asked to, because, well, I'm being given information specifically about that, and I had some questions that haven't been answered yet, but we're going to cover the rest, and I want to talk about some things. He says, now, if you saw Trump's announcement regarding the digital cards, which was December 15th, he says, I'm hoping by now you've realized those were all comms, communications. It says those were communications, and that everything inside those cards, those pictures or illustrations, has a meaning. And hopefully what you've also done by now is you've seen the video that he released shortly after the cards. He says, now, he's trolling the mainstream media worldwide, and he is now playing his cards, which means any moment now we're going to see military around the world do their thing. Now, for those of you down in South America, Brazil, and you're like, what's the military waiting for? What are they waiting for? Well, this is an op that's going to be all around the world, and this is being synchronized for a very specific reason. And that reason is to not only eliminate the ridiculous fear they have been trying to generate around the world, but it's to send a very, very clear message to those who are in hiding that you're next. So that the fear will shift from them projecting the fear out to the fear will be internalized into themselves, giving them a taste of their own medicine as they become the hunted. Now, he says, I do have a question for today's thing. Is humanity a failure point? He says, and that is more of to give you guys something. He says, humanity to think about. But as I said last week, and I've said in several other weeks, there is no failure point in this plan. He says, now I know that there are other speakers out there, and I'm aware that they're saying a lot of very contradictory things. And of course, we all appreciate free speech, and the world and humanity should be allowed to have free speech. And if we're going to have free speech, then we have to celebrate the fact that everybody has a right to say or think, no matter how ridiculous or how profound it might be. It says, you can't have one without the other, because then you don't have free speech. And this was Trump's message that he was very, very specific about. Now, that message was not just for the United States of America. That message was for the world. It says, now, I have said for years that the only way I myself would accept a global government is if it was based on the Constitution of the United States. And it fits very well with if we establish a true constitutional republic that the state regulates. Says it would fit perfectly with the independent nations. He says they remain independent. They have the ability to question, and they have the ability to make their own laws, etc., etc. And I'm talking about the organic constitution, the one that the founding fathers of the United States created, not the corporation constitution in any way, shape, or form. And they're really not the same. They look like the same, but the way they operated, the way they projected themselves, the way they controlled and manipulated and lie, the way they give themselves amnesty while sitting in the halls of government and committing treason every hour on the hour, and yet they declare they have amnesty and that there's nothing we can do about it, because they're committing treason. But they're in the halls of government. That kind of bullshit, okay? Because we have the same issue all the way around the world. So this will become more and more clear as the days go on here. So I'm not going to specifically, he says, well, we don't like to talk about other speakers. We just don't. However, there is information that's out there that clearly needs to be addressed. Now, I do not know the journey of some of these people that say these things. I don't know their information specifically. And of course, you'll have your own discernment. And as you know, we're all about that. We are all about using your own discernment, whether it's what I say, the A's say, or the Palladians, or any group, the Arcturians. He says it doesn't matter, okay? What matters is what you think individually and how you process the information and whether or not it feels right, it feels true, whether it resonates. He says, now, we all know about what resonated 10 years ago, may not resonate now. That's the nature of energy. It changes, it shifts, and so does consciousness. Now, the higher the consciousness gets, the more objective we are, or less objective we can be about specific information. Because I want to remind everyone, and I do this with myself, none of us were born and hatched on this planet. We've all come from someplace else. We all have other experiences in other realms, other dimensions, in other cultures, in other star nations, we all do. Every single one of us. And at some point, we're going to remember that information. Some of us already do. We draw on those experiences to find our pathway here in this particular planet, in this particular place and swamp that we live on, okay? And it's just how it is. I mean, this was the mission. This is what we signed up for, and Earth is really the ultimate boot camp. It really is. My God, isn't it? Holy. It's been a tough one, guys, hasn't it? It's been tough. I tell you. He says it's definitely not for the squeamish. He says, so, having said that, there is no star nation or off-world race that owns Africa. It's not happening. Even in the other timelines, which no longer exist, that was not a reality, okay? The Alliance hasn't failed. Not even in other timelines that no longer exist. Is that a reality? They have cleaned house, but they've only become stronger by cleaning house. It's because those who originally joined had ulterior motives. Arterial. Oh my gosh, I feel like I can't. Have you had problems with like either speaking or I feel like even writing things down, like words just can't. Like I used to be a really good speller and I just feel like lately while I'm transcribing all this, like I can't spell anymore. I feel like, yeah, it's weird. Like things are definitely changing. And I want to say maybe it's just old age, but like I'm not that old. So things things in our life right now are changing, and I get it from everybody, even my coworkers. Like they just feel it, they know, but they can't articulate about it. He says, and this was one of the specific reasons why you had fifth and sixth density star nations coming down and checking everybody else's work. That was the very specific purpose for that maneuver, is to flesh out other agendas other than what the actual focus was. And that was to assist an evolving race of multiple soul groups from multiple dimensions. Lift and change the frequency of the planet that is extremely unique, in that it can not only house multiple dimensions but multiple environments simultaneously. And we're talking about extremely complicated ecosystems, okay? We have third, we have fourth, and we have fifth. So that's really, really important. Now, I went back to some of the old notes because I was directed to, and this is something I have not talked about forever. It may be 25 years since I talked about this. According to the Andromedans, we actually have 13 planets in our solar system, planets that actually house life, individual, unique life on its own. Now, our science calls them moons. They're actually not. He says that twice. They're actually not. I mean, is anybody surprised that we still don't know the truth about that? He says, no, of course not. But here's the interesting thing. As we move into fifth density, our solar system has 27 planets, all harboring life. Isn't that interesting? 27. Now, of course, as we move and jump frequencies, there's a lot more expansion. And so that makes perfect sense to me that we would have, more than 3 times the ability to harbor life as you move into fifth density because of the expansion of the frequency. So, just a thought that would be a very interesting thing to share with you guys. About that. He says, because of the shifts in frequency, there are all kinds and all levels of humanity that are processing energy blocks. Some of those are directly related to fear. Some of those are directly related to abandonment issues. Some of those would be psychosis of different experiences. Some of those will be people who are or have been a part of the space program or have been abducted and don't know it. They're suddenly going to find themselves waking up and remembering, and they're going to be thinking that they're going crazy. But their body, which never lies, the body never lies, telling them and giving them information and releasing the trauma, the blockages, the fear. It has to, okay? Because as these higher energies are being processed by the body, by the bodies, and through the bodies in preparation for the third strand turning on, and then other strands after that, there has to be the ability for the energy to flow and pass through the bodies. There's a lot of that going on, and people who are in the middle of the process are projecting all kinds of shit. All kinds of shit. And unfortunately, a lot of that is fear. It's fear. And ego is directly connected to fear. And fear is directly connected to ego. So I was reminded of that 2 nights ago to make note of it. It says, now, Mornay had shared some of this years ago with me, and I frankly didn't remember it. So he's re-brought it back to my attention because that's what they're watching. That's what they're witnessing. Now, eventually, we will all move through it. We will all move through it, but it's interesting that all of this comes at a very specific time where we have so much disclosure that not only is present time, but will also involve the past, whether it's past lives or not. Now, some of it has no relation to the Earth experience. However, it does have a relationship to star families that were here, that were very regressive, okay? And as we begin to learn more and more about the races that have been here and have been hidden, that have been manipulating, such as the Tao, it says which Elena and the negative, I guess it's called the Nibu, the Orion group and several groups, those from Sirius B, who are not all negative, but those that are really hold that frequency well. The Aldebarans and obviously the Dracos, okay? As that information is going to be coming forward and releasing, many of us are going to have an emotional response to it, an energetic response. This is all part of the process. It just is. Apparently, this is just how it is. You just don't walk from one consciousness to another in amnesia. It just doesn't happen that way. But that would probably be a lot easier. So the reason I bring this up is because we need to be aware of this so we can become more tolerant and more compassionate to the energies. That doesn't mean that we are in any way tolerant, anyone in any way. Oh my God, I can't speak. Oh my gosh, can you tell I haven't gotten any sleep? Sleep problems too. A lot of people are having sleep issues. I see so many people coming in and buying sleeping pills. It's crazy. I think a lot of it has to do with solar flares too. My problem is my dog keeps crying all night long. And I think it's her digestive issue or her Cushing's disease. Like, she just keeps crying. And I'm literally up every 2 hours. Just like when I had my child. Every 2 hours I was up. It was crazy. Sorry. Anyway. Says it just doesn't happen that way, but that would probably be a lot easier. So the reason I bring this up is because we need to be aware of this so we can become more tolerant and more compassionate to the energies. That doesn't mean that we in any way tolerate anyone physically or emotionally abusing ourselves or anyone else. It's very important we have our boundaries and we absolutely make clear about those boundaries. But to be aware, this process is ongoing and it's going to be for several years now. It's going to be peaks and valleys, okay? And during this time, what's happening to our DNA is that it's releasing trauma or blockages, which is memories that are buried, and it's beginning to release it. And as it releases it, as it is freed from the denial, it's going to be giving us pictures and movies, both in our dreams and in the awakened state. Daydreams. It says, so you could be sitting at a park, at a lake, and all of a sudden you're going to see this movie in your head. That's a cellular memory playing out for you so that you can see it and you can acknowledge it. Some of it's going to be pretty, some of it's not. Most of it's not going to be pretty. I did have a dream. I was looking in a mirror and I was blonde. I knew it was me. It didn't look like me. I was really pretty. And I had on these earrings, these really big earrings. That's all I kind of remember is looking at me and going, wow, I'm actually pretty. So, and then I woke up. I don't even remember what that dream was about, but I just remember that one part. So it was really strange. It says, but the idea is to acknowledge it and release it, saying, I forgive this experience. It is no longer a part of my present reality. Those were the words he used. It is no longer a part of my present reality. You just forgive it and let it go. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that, okay? You don't have to go into therapy. You don't have to whatever. He says it can be very simple. The idea is to let it go, not to hold on to it. Plus, the bonus is that you're going to be seeing these movies in your head or in your dream state, and you're going to know for a fact that it's you. And they are not only going to be in the past experiences or lifetimes or present lifetime, lifetimes that are past, but some of them are going to be future. Things that maybe have happened last time on this mission and it didn't go so well. So we've had to come back in time to right a terrible wrong, you see? So for those of us who went through the failure the first time, there are going to be things we don't recall that are going to be shown. And the purpose for all of that is to release that and let it go. Just know that. It's also important to keep in perspective that the reason we're all going to be experiencing this is because it is safe to do so. It is safe to do so, which means this outcome that we are in presently, this single one timeline that we are on right now is already successful. It's already successful, okay? There's no failure point. I did have a dream and I haven't had one in a long time, and it was really strange that like I was laying down, something handed me my kitten, like a comfort thing, but then I was paralyzed. Like I was completely paralyzed and I couldn't move. And I kept telling myself like I break out, break out, break out. And it took me like it felt like a really long time to just finally break out of the paralyzation. And then like I woke up in my bed and I don't remember like sensing an entity or anything there. I didn't see anything, but who knows? Maybe that was me in stasis somewhere, and maybe someone was giving me the kitten for comfort to help me like awaken out of that paralyzation. That's kind of how I see it. So it was very strange. He says, and what that means specifically is that we get to the other side of this. We absolutely do. So what leads me into the question is humanity the failure point? When we get to the other side of all this stuff, he says this breaking the chains, remembering who we are, learning to have compassion for each other, to build mutual respect, not only for ourselves and our loved ones, but for civilization as a whole, as we progress to that level of maturity where we all have mutual respect for all things. What will humanity do? That's the $64,000 question. When we move into total self-responsibility, can we hold it together? Can we and will we not get lazy and take it for granted and teach what we've learned to future generations? Will we go the extra steps to make sure this experience we're all going through is not only fully documented, but that it is taught to future generations, at least the next 24 future generations? At that point, humanity itself no longer has the possibility in any way, shape, or form of becoming a failure point. 24 generations. So when we talk about rebuilding the world, creating it, is that is is that what we want? The analogy that Mornay gave me was, if we were to take your race to an entirely different planet and put you on the ground and say, now, go figure it out, how would we do that? How would we start? How would we build our community? What would that look like? And that's what we're going to start talking about next week. So I'm just giving you a heads up on that, because literally, virtually, what we have today, the structures that we've known, there are elements of it that we could keep depending upon what those are. But for the most part, these systems are completely, sorry for the paper noise, completely irredeemable. It says we have to start over. And the emphasis will be on a local level, which is something we will start talking about next week. Moving forward, the best model that we have thus far of creating a holistic society, a holistic civilization, is the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights. It just is. He says that twice. It just is. Those documents were divinely inspired, along with the Declaration of Independence. These documents were divinely inspired. There was intervention to make this all happen. Now, I've talked about this in the past in previous webinars about Thomas Jefferson going out at night for walks at night, which he did on his estate, and meeting a very tall man wearing a robe who walked with him one night, and they apparently had a conversation. Now, this is in his diaries, and this very specific language and verbiage was given to Jefferson. And structure for the Declaration of Independence. James Madison, the father of the Constitution, was also divinely inspired. Talked to his wife, Dolly, about the dreams he was having and how he was walking in the country with several men, and they were sharing with him the instruction of a limited government that would put the people totally in power and in the driving seat, or would make the people responsible for the direction of their nation, the nation that was to come. Benjamin Franklin was inspired, along with Jefferson, to talk to the Iroquois League of Nations and to talk about what was their strategy to keep their nations together, the indigenous nations together, and out of that came the Bill of Rights. Now, a lot of this is not taught any longer at all, anywhere. And then you have Washington at Valley Forge, and the angel wearing the crown that said Union, giving him very specific information and showing him the future of the United States, because he was at his wit's end. He didn't think he could pull this off. Now, there are those that say these men were Masons. Well, yes, they were, but they were not dark. They were not evil. Do you do this? Do you do something like this and you break all the monarchies of Europe and say, fuck you? No, 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 no. So, it's like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. These guys were dialed in. These guys and women says, because their wives were behind them. And Adams, Madison, Washington, their wives were very instrumental in keeping their husbands grounded and on point, constantly keeping them focused on the mission, accomplish the mission, stay on the mission. None of them would have done this without their wives, without the feminine principle, point of fact. So the future, as governments are being replaced around the world, as they're being taken down, do not all be surprised if you hear more and more chatter about the United States Constitution and how it is structured. That it is instituted by those who are the governed by the people to represent them. It doesn't give them almighty power. It just means that it's represented by the people, and the people are ultimately the ones who make the decisions. Okay? Ricardo Bossi, the Australian guy, already talking about this in Australia. They're also talking about this in the Middle East, believe it or not. Eastern Europe, they're already talking about this, using the United States model, the original organic constitution as the model. Isn't that awesome? That's so awesome. I love it. Love it. It says, the reason I bring this up is because these same elements, the same energies, the same benevolence that was here at the creation of this nation, it is here once again. Do you understand? We have the same participation here, except now it's on a global scale. It had to be done first on a local scale, okay? So even though the United States created a new domain of knowing, the next domain of knowing is global. We're all gonna get it at the same time. Every citizen. This will teach individual liberties and individuals' responsibility, which is where our planet and our race has to go in order to participate and to interact with other star nations, because they're like this already. They're already there, and they understand more than we realize what we've all been through and what we're going through now. Now, some of these races haven't gone through the same experience, but they're compassionate to understand what's going on here. There are some speakers who are saying the seat of the new Galactic Federation is going to be our solar system. I asked M about that, and he said no. He said no. However, the integration of our soul groups and our physicality into fourth and into fifth changes those two frequencies, those dimensional realms, by our presence alone. And it's very, very positive. It says it's very, very positive. And that's all he'd give me. It says, so this not only needs to happen, but it's going to happen, which is why there's no failure points. You see, there's no failure points. So that means we're going to rise to the occasion. The intervention we are having is not solely responsible for this, but it is in fact a part of this process. The higher dimensional realms that are intervening also. As far as a mentorship at a management level of the plan that is playing itself out on the surface is not solely responsible for it either. In other words, it's all working in harmony together. To make this thing a reality, so it's going to happen. It's going to happen, okay? I could say it another way, and the only way I feel I want to say it is that it's a fucking done deal, he says. So whatever noise you hear is people projecting their own shit. Now you can go there if you want. You can fall back into fear and allow yourself to become a victim. You absolutely have those abilities and those rights to do that. And if that's where you need to be to process more and more stuff, okay. Don't get stuck there though, because nobody's waiting for you. We're all moving to higher ground. And the sooner you let that stuff go, the sooner you make the decision, I am not a victim anymore. He says, fuck that. The sooner you move to higher ground, he says, the sooner we shift the frequency here. That gets rid of regressives. That gets rid of fear. That gets rid of regret. that gets rid of everything, gets rid of a monetary system, and moves us into a place where we truly live free. We become free to come and go by your leave without asking for permission from anyone. You know, he gave me more, but I don't know how to describe it. He says, you know, I don't know how to describe it, and I can't put it into words because there just aren't words sometimes. The white hats globally are doing this the way they know how to do it, the way they're comfortable doing it, the way that they're confident in doing it. They have been given advice, they have been given information and instructions, but for the most part, nobody knows how to do that here. Okay? And he kind of laughs and he says, we don't know how to do it. So there's improvisation. See, I can't even talk sometimes. I can't even pronounce words. I feel like I just want to do my telepathic thing and quit talking some days, you know. It says they're taking that information and saying, well, you know, we know how to do this. We're very competent in doing it this way, so let's do it this way. It might take a little bit longer, but we get the same results. We get the same exact results, but we're confident in what we're doing. And the more competent and confident one is in moving forward, then they move forward, okay? Because you don't want to move into something without having a clue or not feeling confident about what the end result is going to be or any failure points. So I realize that to many people, what we see happening on the surface doesn't make sense. Why would the white hats do this? Why would the white hats do that? There are very, very specific reasons for it. Okay? And I don't pretend to know all the reasons either. I just don't. But I do absolutely trust the plan. I absolutely do. There's no failure point. What else needs to be said? Said, okay, you know, and I'm getting this directly from someone who's involved at a very high level, that there's no failure points here. And I absolutely trust that without a doubt. So all of those who are bashing us because we're selling hopium, says, and you know, you need to look at your own shit. You do. You need to look at your own shit. Why are you investing in failure and fear and projecting that shit to people? Why? That's your stuff, not theirs. It's your stuff. Don't project that shit on other people. It's your stuff, you know? And don't fucking justify it either. He says it's bullshit. It's bullshit. That's why I've like learned, like, I don't really say too much. I observe people a lot and I listen to them, but I don't give a whole lot of information because it's their path, it's their journey. They have to learn themselves. So I try not to even project the good stuff. Like I project love and light, and I send them love and light that they'll wake up. But yeah, sometimes you just sit back and observe. Just be. Says, do you want to win? Do you want to be free? Then invest in that. Okay? Not with could've, should've. Might happen on timelines that don't even exist, and that's probably the biggest problem you have, is that you don't even realize that we're on a single one timeline. Okay? And it's not about failure. The failure ones are gone. They don't even exist anymore. Why are you carrying that with you? Because that's your shit. We have a remarkable future, ladies and gentlemen. We do. When we get to the other side of this, it's going to be nothing short of spectacular. And I know that. I've known that forever. And that's why, like, it's so frustrating to just have to wait for all this to happen. It's just frustrating because we know how great it's going to be. We're all going to be like children. Oh my God, everything's going to be new. Everything's going to be a remarkable discovery. Everything that we participate in is going to be something that evolves us, that stretches us and empowers us in a remarkable way. See, and I think I've said this before, and you think, okay, well, we're just going into this new world and we're all going to have to rebuild from the start. But honestly, if you're going into a higher frequency, there's already beings there. We're not going to be alone. We're going to have beings that have been living in the system, and they're, I guess, going to be like our mentors, and they're going to be showing us how to live in this system. So, yeah, we're not alone. We won't be alone. Says that's a fact. That's just an absolute fact, you know? Says we are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years behind where the other civilizations are, like our own or similar to, okay? That's how much catching up we've got. Says there is no reason to drag the past with us. Process it and let it go. Because if you're looking in the rearview mirror, you're going to crash on your way to higher ground. Says because you're not paying attention to where you're going. You're constantly looking back here, okay? The past isn't back there. The past is in front of us, and that's where we need to be focused, okay? All the ghosts, the demons, the demonics, all that shit goes away with a frequency shift, just like that. It all goes away with a frequency shift. Shouldn't that be what we should be focused on? Disease, cancers, all that with a frequency shift. It's gone. It's over. It's over. Okay? Change the channel. He says, I'm going to read this to you. It's about fear. It's from Mornay. This was in 1991. So this is from the Andromedans. In your time and space, fear will be a challenge to you all. For any of you to be in fear, you lack a clear understanding of most situations. We have observed your world and is at the most confused point of history and evolvement. We understand your remarkable drive and commitment to being alive. We, however, are not understanding of your need to create tools of death, expecting they will keep all in a space of understanding and peace. We have observed that you have built, create, and plan in a space of fear, not in the consciousness of love. So your defense positions of institutions that create and employ are always in a state of unraveling and disintegration. We share this with you because they drain you and your earth of your energy, both spiritually and materially and physically. Fear always has to feed. Fear does not create itself. It has to feed. The fear we observe is difficult to understand. It depletes you of your focus on the original intent. It is also a very secretive energy. Fear withholds love. This is most sadly to see and to feel. How can you share understanding and love when so many of you are withholding from self and each other? Please feel the words we as a race are trying to express to your race. One of your original intentions in creating your physical reality is the idea of creating and learning to manipulate and express yourselves through physicality, using your consciousness. It is your consciousness that the Isness has given you, and in fact, all things that bear spirit. It is this gift that has been clouded, and most importantly, clouded by fear. This creation is completely irrational to whom we all are. He says, virtually all the institutions we've created on this planet are based in fear, even our religions. Even our religions. So that part is what Alex was saying. Virtually all the institutions we've created on this planet are based in fear. They're all based on fear. Now, many star nations have been through this already. He says they understand the process. And if they themselves have not been through it, they have mentored or watched other star nations go through this same process. Not all of them make it or have made it. Now, for those of you who are new, Isness is what the Andromedans refer to as source, what we would call God, and it is in the Andromedan perspective that if it had to have a gender, says, we always refer to it as a male, usually on our planet, here on our surface, which apparently isn't true. It doesn't have a gender, but in the A's perspective, if it had a gender, it would be the feminine principle. It would be a woman, okay? See, and this is where I venture to say, wouldn't it be both? Because wouldn't that be balance? It might be a little bit more feminine, but I believe like the creator source is male and female, because we're made in its image, right? So wouldn't it be both? It says, now, I was asked to read this again today, so I'm going to, and I apologize to all of you who are like, whatever. There's a reason for this energy today. This is on the relationship with the isness. I was given this on 2/24 of 1995, when I was still living in California. This is still to this day one of my most favorite things that they've shared with me. So it says, the worship of the isness is silent and solitary, free from all self-seeking. The silence is a necessity because all speech is feeble and imperfect. Therefore, as with your ancestors and ours, their spirits and consciousness would ascend out of time and space to the isness in wordless adoration and feeling. There are no priests or saviors authorized to come between a soul and our created maker. Each experience is personal and different than another. It should not in any way be meddled with or judged. Each soul should become conscious of the divinity that is in itself. There should be no shrines, no temples among you, except nature and the caretaking of nature by mankind. Be a real, natural human being. Your real faith may not be formulated in decrees as you have been taught, but from a deeper portion of yourself that you have only forgotten and or chose to ignore. Temples were built upon your planet to worship ET beings, believed or pretending to be gods. The isness can be worshipped by honoring yourself, and that which is given you by honoring yourself, you honor the isness, because you are truly one and the same. Absolutely. Look at your earth, your ocean, your night sky, and the galaxy. This is your church. You are the altar in that church. So release yourself from past limited thinking. It takes only a decision. What anyone else thinks simply does not matter. It is important to remember that isness does not place value upon the material fabric of time. This has only been created so that we as souls can learn more about ourselves and return with our experiences to contribute to the creation of ourselves. The rituals of offering, sacrifice, and symbolic objects only mean something to you alone. The isness is not only interested in your intent, the path of your heart. Look to find the highest happiness and the motor for power in your own existence. Do not look ill upon those of simplicity or poverty. The goal of one's path, regardless of lifetimes and or life forms, is not the accumulation of wealth and enjoyment of material luxury. It is to discover your true self, that which is a part of the isness. It is that part of you who chooses to leave the comfort and safety of all of eternity to fall into the concept of time, to become a true human being. It is the practice and constant embracing of one's own essential self. And from that place of eternity, your thoughts, actions, and emotions should emanate into the world. Human beings should be vulnerable, open, focused, strong, and flexible. In your world, the three concerns all of you must address personally are self-worth, trust, and expectation. Your earth not only needs healing, she also needs a responsible and worthy companion. That companion is the masculine. There is a great need for the men in your world to become intuitive and to focus on the development of their soul. Men must cultivate unconditional love on all levels. The men of your world are too aggressive and full of self-imposed loneliness, anger, and despair. Remember that all energy moves in a circle and everything always returns. The love, the anger, and or the despair, please, we ask you to acknowledge the fact that the love that you withhold is the pain that you carry. So let love warm your voice. Let love be the wonder to children's ears. Let imagination create a world of unconditional responsibility. It will also change the order of the old world. Let your emotions give motion to the heroes that struggle within all of you for the freedom to act, to be, to witness, and to apologize. The responsibility of becoming a human being is great, but it is also natural. It is prayer in motion. It is your evolution in free will in action. It is the flow of life in all things. So love the earth and make new life. The children are always a new beginning. Most of you have yet to rediscover a world that you've already discovered. And he says, okay, I did it. Oh, isn't that true? So true. It says, when we belong to a congregation and when you're all in prayer, where is that energy actually going to? Who's feeding off that energy? When we make financial contributions to those organizations, what's actually being done with your energy? I bring that up because, very, very soon we're going to be hearing the absolute truth regarding the Vatican, the Church of Rome. We're going to be finding out about child trafficking and the Catholic organizations that are involved in that also. The government organizations that are involved in it, such as CPS and others, we're going to be finding out what they've been really actually doing. Now, what they represent, not what they represent, but what they've been doing, as well as sacrifices that they do in the dark that have nothing to do with what they profess or teach. These are going to be very, very tough lessons for everybody, but it is absolutely necessary so that we can make clear decisions about what it is that we want moving forward. And even George Cavassalis talked about this years ago, and it's in his book, Our Journey Home, and he talks about, the fourth dimensional entity that claims to be the God of all things. Yeah, and he talks about how the church will come down eventually. It says the same will be the governments. We've been lulled to sleep, and we're about to be completely shocked out of our complacency. And the sooner we can move through the shock, the betrayal, and then the anger, the sooner we can begin to rebuild what it is we need to do and what we want. And what we all need to realize is that every race, every culture on this planet has been subject to this darkness, through this evil. And to make sure we could not see that, they played each and every one of us against each other. Bastards, right? So we would be so busy fighting each other, we would not ever find out who was shaking the jar, as Mark Twain used to put it. He says, okay, somebody was shaking the world, but what we're doing was blaming each other, not actually looking for who it was that was shaking the jar. So sadly, some of them were humans, were us, and others were not humans at all. They were not from this world, okay? But they had their own entire agenda. But we're moving past that. That is no longer an issue. The issues now are exposing all that history, all that information, and seeing if humanity can move through it, can move past it. If we can come out of this on the other side, healed, with a renewed focus and intention, that is one that benefits all of humanity, regardless of race, color, or creed. And in letter 17, boards say the ending will not be for everyone. Yes. So there is an awful lot going on. 80% of what you are hearing in the media and elsewhere simply isn't true. It's roughly 80%, okay? It just simply isn't true. And the purpose for that is to force us to go within, to become intuitive. So now, ladies, you've got a huge heads up on that because your extremes of emotions are, there are more developed than that of the masculine. Bottom line, they just are. And that's why nature chose you to bear offspring because of those reasons. The masculine has some catching up to do, and it's going to be difficult because it's been conditioned and raised in a very specific way. And what that way was to create soldiers, to create warriors, not just to defend our families, but to take out each other. And we're going to have some issues with that. We're going to have some issues, and we're going to have to figure it out, okay? We're just going to have to figure it out. But once the masculine falls in line, once the masculine has a clear perspective of what was and what now is expected of the masculine resonance, I genuinely believe that we will step up. We will absolutely step up and man up and do the right things and do everything we can to rebuild the world and change the course of how our sons are raised. It says, remember, this was all done intentionally to us, okay? We're all victims. But at point, the victimhood has to end. And that ends when we take self-responsibility, because now we know better. But it isn't going to happen to everybody all at once. It's going to happen in stages, in waves. And the other thing, too, is that men are going to have to learn how to heal our regrets, because we were all called upon to do certain things, whether it's in war, in other countries, in our world's militaries. He says, we did things based on the situation we were put in our belief systems. And at some point, we're going to realize, and it's going to be pointed out to us, that these weren't true. The reasons we were there were not honest, and that the things that we did or ordered to do were not truly required. So, there's a lot of work to be done. And there's a lot of technology that's coming out that will help with that process tremendously. Tremendously help with that process and to help move things along at a steady pace so that we can all get to higher ground in a relatively short amount of time. It says now, information about I'm just going to say holistic beds being destroyed. He says it isn't true. It simply isn't true. So I wanted you to know that. Those are people projecting their shit, and everybody needs to be allowed their process, whatever that is. But all of us, whether we're males or females, listen to your gut. Your body doesn't lie, and your heart is always going to be wiser than your head. Always. I wish it wasn't so complicated, but it is. But I know we'll get through it if we just take it a day at a time. I know that there's a lot of things going on, and you know very, very soon the United States dollar, the financial system in the United States is going to come down, and it has to come down so that it can be replaced. I don't know what that looks like, and I'm pretty nervous about that as well. I am, he says, but I know we get through it somehow. I mean, our forefathers did it, you know, we can figure this out as long as we all work together as a community. If we all work together, we will get through it. We're survivors. Look at the shit humanity's been through, the history, floods, pole shifts, alien wars, nuclear weapons in the past. And here we are, still bearing children, still hoping for a better future. He says, well, we will get through this, especially when we know the reasons why the old system has to be taken down and crumbled, because it's dark. It was intended to enslave us. And if we can remember that, we should be willingly embracing the future, because whatever comes next gives us our freedom back, okay? At the moment, because we're not going to rebuild the world until next week. That's all I've got. So let's start with the question and answer, okay? And then he starts talking again. Says, you know, ladies and gentlemen, none of these are scripted. They're not. They're real time in the moment, and I'm sure most of you have already figured that out. He says, look, no matter what anybody says, know who you are. And if you know who you are and you know what you're about, anything that isn't true, don't even pay attention to, because you know what you know. And as far as humanity goes, he says, look, there are so many resources here to help us, because they know who humanity is as well. They know who we are as souls. In fact, many of them here have worked with us in other realities, in other lifetimes, past, present, and future. They know who we are, and they're here to help. So there should not be any of this, I'm not worthy. You just trash that. He says, flush that shit down the toilet. Burn it in a fire. Write it down on a piece of paper as many times. I am worthy. I am worthy. I am worthy. You are worthy. And you let it go, because you are worthy. All of us are worthy. And what's coming and what is here now says we are absolutely worthy of it. That we're not worthy, those are old tapes, old programs that were based on things that we used to use to control and manipulate. They are no longer appropriate in any way. In any way they are appropriate today. They are not. Ruling by guilt is terrible. He says it's terrible, and we should never invest in that again, ever, ever, ever. He says, okay, JP, I'll shut up now. Okay. So first question, and again, I didn't write all the questions. A lot of them were about subjects that he's already addressed, or things he didn't know at all, or about this, and I didn't want to get shut down because of that. So first question, being off-world, what does the Earth look like? What we've been shown all of our lives, what do the stars look like? And is the James Webb showing us true images? We've been fed bullshit for so long. Some truth would be nice. And Alex says, well, I've only been sharing the truth. The planet is a sphere. However, at the very top, what we call the North Pole, it is flat. And that's where the opening is, okay? That's where the oceans go in and recede, and the waters are processed. Then they are filtered back to the surface in creeks and things of that nature, rivers, etc. That's how this works. And at the South Pole, a significant portion of the Antarctica is also unflat. So it's flat at the top and it's a sphere, the rest of it. It is not a plate. It's just not a plate. And as far as the Webb telescope, I genuinely do not know how much of that is real. I do not. It says I haven't traveled the universe myself. I have not. I have been on their ships. I have been on their motherships, which have been in several solar systems, but I have not traveled the galaxy or the universe itself. I have not, so I can't tell you. In fact, I haven't even been to the fourth dimension. I just kind of skipped it. So this journey of third into fourth, I'm experiencing with the rest of you, okay? When we get to the fifth, he says, I got directions. He says, I can get you to my house, okay? And I'm erecting an old earth mailbox with balloons on it. He says, for the shindig, okay? Barbecue. He laughs. He says, for the barbecue. I thought that was hilarious. Yeah, Alex is going to have a party. We're all going to be there, right? Next question. Have off-world beings advised our white hats to lead the population blinded by our media until the right time? It's so hard to believe awakening humanity isn't a priority for the white hat operation. And Alex's answer was, yeah, I share that. He says, I share that with you. But at the same time, I totally understand the reason why this was done this way. In order to find out who is truly awake, in order to find out who the true leaders are or potential leaders could be going forward, you would institute an order for the process. The old expression is for the cream to come to the top. Okay? And those who can see, those who have the ability to see through the illusions, tend to be the first ones to wake up. And those people also tend to be the leaders moving forward. So essentially, this whole process is designed to see who the leaders are and to find out those who are awake. Now, this is a really big deal because going forward, a lot of humanity is going to truly struggle with the disclosures that are coming out because they have based their entire self-image and persona on things that simply aren't true. So when these revelations finally come out, their entire self-image and self-projection is completely going to collapse. It's going to completely collapse, and it has to be us awakened ones that have to explain and lift these people up out of the rubble, which is what they're going to see their life in as, is just rubble. It is us who have done the same journey as them, has to be us who help lift them out of the rubble. That's that their life has now just become. It can't be ETs. It can't be ETs that do this. Nope. Cannot be them. It has to be us. It has to be someone who clearly knows the same journey. Absolutely. And that's why us awakened ones have more empathy and sympathy. In the beginning of this, we were against each other and blah, 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 fighting with each other. And we have to accept us awakened ones. Like, there are so many people still asleep out there. Where I work, I have people talk to me all the time about coming in and getting all their shots, flu shots, all these other shots, all these things. And I just sit there and shake my head inside and I just listen to them and I try not to say too much because I know it's their own path, okay? And it would just cause more confusion for them if I tried to explain anything to them until the truth finally comes out. But we're going to have to be the ones to help them get out of this deep despair they're going to feel. It says this strategy that we're seeing play out here has been, he says, I don't like using the word gained, but it has been put through a process of being put through not only third density computers, but fourth density computers, fifth density computers, and our conscious living systems to see what would be the best way and the surest way and the quickest way for humanity to get from here to there, from third density into fourth and then into fifth. And this process that we are engaged in now proved to be the one on third, fourth, and fifth that seemed to work the best. In other words, in playing out the scenario, this scenario came out of third, fourth, and fifth. Many of the other ways they looked at this might come up in third and fourth, but not in the fifth. Or it would come up on the fifth, but not in the third or the fourth. So, but this particular process of initiating everybody to what's been going on, to waking everybody up, came out on third, fourth, and fifth dimension, which is why it was selected. And it doesn't make sense to a lot of us, but I think at some point it will make perfect sense as we get closer and closer to full disclosure of the matrix we've all been living in. Says, see, that's the issue. So many generations have been living in this matrix. We don't know anything else. We simply don't know anything else. So it's hard for someone to conceive anything beyond what we've been in, the box we've been in. It isn't until you've actually been outside the box and come back that you really understand and you know that you're in the box, you're in the matrix. So this was the way that was chosen to open up the box for everyone to see. It's complicated, it says. It's complicated. No doubt about it, it's complicated. And how do you express fourth density and fifth density reality with a language that was not only limited, but it was the language was designed to enslave our consciousness? It says, as well. So it's a great question. Exactly. Next question. It appears the U.S. military is seemingly sitting back and allowing the deep state to get away with ongoing criminal acts. Is the military's timing being sabotaged internally by high-ranking treasonous officers who take their orders from deep state rogues? If so, can we expect a military civil war to erupt soon? So I assume a similar scenario is bringing other countries. And Alex says, no, Richard, I don't believe so. I don't believe so at all. And you know, I can't specifically address other nations, but I will address the militaries in this country. No one is sitting on their ass and their laurels. No one is doing that. There is so much going on that a lot of stuff that you hear of what's occurred has happened months ago. Okay, you're only hearing about it now. A lot of the information that is being leaked out and is being shared is not real time. They're only sharing with you what has occurred in the past. Now that could be months, it could be weeks, but it's already happened. You're only hearing about it now as if it's in real time. That's what you do in a war. Absolutely. He says, remember Sun Tzu, The Art of War is about. He says, a lot of it has to do with deception. For example, General Berger resigning from the White Hats appear weak when you are strong. And the purpose for that is probably to flush out some rogue military people. There's a reason for everything. And as I have said over and over and over again, everybody is checking each other's work. I don't say that lightly, but everyone is checking each other's work. And that includes everyone on the upper levels as well. They are constantly checking our work and we are checking their work. There is a relationship that has been built on trust. Otherwise, none of this would have happened. And that relationship took years to build. Years and years and years, decades to build, so that we knew we could trust them and they knew they could trust us. So everything is working in sync. A lot of things that you were worried about is just the deep state media pushing bullshit. But as the Q team said from the very beginning, the ending isn't going to be for everyone. And in any war, there are casualties. There are. the information that's out about there are people that are still going and getting it. Yes, there is, because I work in a place where they do, and it's horrible. They come out going, "Oh, I just got my," I'm like, "Oh my God, seriously? Oh my gosh." He said, "The dead suddenly movement. There are still people. You cannot stop people from giving away their power if they truly believe they are powerless. How do you do that?" So how do you do that? There are people that I know, he says, that just in my neighborhood who are um, admit about getting and they think I'm fucking crazy, even though I have shared with them the information and the videos. This can't be true. My doctor would never lie to me. He says, "Okay, then, what do you do?" I said, "Do you hogtie them? Do you kidnap them? What do you do? What do you do? Because if, Richard, you have that answer, you let me know." He says, "I'm not in the Q group. I'm not privy to all the information. I'm just not. So like you, I'm having to try to make," he says, "or to put pieces together based on the information that I do get. Do I wish this was over with? God, yes. God, I do." He says, "Let's get on with the rebuild, the remodel. Let's get on with it. Let's end cancer. Let's end leukemia. Let's end it all. Yesterday, 10 years ago. You can only control that which you can control yourself. And that basically is just you and your actions and your own emotions. That's really all you can control. We can't control other people. If you're married, you know that. If you have children, you know that double. Okay? Absolutely. Yeah, what do you do? Like I said, you just have to send them light and love and hope that they wake up. You know, it's just like the other day, the football player passed out on the field. Oh, he had, and all in the papers that are lying. Oh, he had heart issues before. Well, if he had heart issues and they do testing for health issues with these players, if he had that big of a heart issue, he shouldn't have been playing, right? Like, he shouldn't have been playing. And yet I have like all these guys around me, you know, at work being like, "Oh, well, he had an issue. That's what they're saying." Like, no, because nobody's talking about he got this several times. That's why. And I saw a post today that said that it was part of the queue saying the first arrest. Well, maybe like that arrest was like his heart arrest. His heart attack will cause a mass pop awakening. Okay, maybe this is because it was on mainstream TV and everybody saw this kid who's only 24 like just drop, you know. So maybe people will start trying to do some research. Maybe things will start clicking. Who knows? I don't know. Hopefully. Next question. Are the bodies of the star seeds who are presently here in stasis somewhere else? And are the people who are originally from Earth here physically? Will you elaborate on this? Alex says, "Thank you. I don't have the answer to that question. I have heard it both ways, that some are in stasis and that some absolutely made the plunge, you know, soul and all, into third density. So I've heard it both ways. I do not have an infinitive answer to that question, but it's a great question, though. I have nothing more to add to that." Next question. Do our ET companions have a chakra system like the Terrans or something equivalent to energy centers that funnel higher frequencies into a manifest body? And Alex says, yes, they do. In fact, even avatar bodies have those to process energies in the physical environments that they're in. They have to. All physical life forms have to have those unless they're like an android, and that's not a living physical system, okay? That's a robot, mechanical. But anything that's alive has to have energy centers to process frequencies, whether it's the planet they're on, Space travel, quasars, suns, stars, just about everything. Wherever there's energy that's moving through a physical body, there are energy centers, aka chakras. So the answer is yes. Now, are they exactly the same as in living bodies? That I don't know. It says, boy, I learned that a long time ago. I was in high school when I had that conversation. This is the first time this has ever come up. Wow. And he laughs. He says, thank you. Thank you. He says, wow, that's a blast from the past. Next question. Where are white hats and it all fits into the animals and pets? She's basically asking, where do the animals and pets fall into this? I rescue abused dogs and wolf dogs, and I'm seeing massive amounts of these turned in. How will that finally turn out? And he says, I don't know. He says, I don't know. I'm looking to actually buy a house at some point, he says, with the help of the RV, and have some property to rescue some dogs myself. He says, Merlin needs a girlfriend. He says he does. Merlin is his little dog. Says he's followed me around way too much, so he needs a girlfriend. Says, so I was gonna rescue, because he was a rescue. I was gonna rescue some critters. He says the cats, the cats were rescues too. So I'm a firm believer in that, but I really don't know. I think once people, this is very important because I've kind of said this before about being out of survival, things will start to happen. He says, I think once people are out of survival, should all of this go as it's supposed to, I think once everybody is out of survival and things have calmed down, I think these shelters will be emptied of the pets. In other words, they'll be adopted and given homes, especially when you have children. Animals bring so much and they teach children so much, especially how to care for and love things outside of themselves. So I just love critters, he says. I just do. And that's kind of, I feel like my daughter has been like, maybe you just need to open a shelter, Mom, because you seem to be like taking in all these cats all of a sudden. I'm like, oh, I would like to have a wildlife sanctuary for sure. And just, yeah, rescue a place that would have like a holistic like healing bed to like heal the injured animals. I would love to have that. Yeah, I would love to have property to do something like that as well. It would be great. It says, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Thank you again for your time, for your energy and your support of our little webinar. I know there are several people who are all doing webinars, and I understand that your attention and your resources are what they are. He says, so for whatever it is going forward, I more than appreciate you and your time and just who you are and the fact that you've come to try and get more information, to educate yourself and to have a different perspective on what life is and what it isn't. I can't tell you how proud I am of all of you for opening yourself up and allowing yourself to stretch and to open yourself up to ridicule and criticism because you choose to see things differently. I know how difficult that could be, and if you decide to move on, I just want you to know I bless you, I love you, I have the greatest respect for you and appreciate all the moments that we've had here together, and Godspeed. Godspeed on whatever you choose to do. After the first, he says, of the year, because I know that there are other people starting webinars too. So may the force always be with you. Okay? So that is it. I know that was a long one today, guys. All right. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this information, share it, give it a thumbs up so more people get to see this information. Go and support Alex on his websites, alexcollier.org. That's where all of his older videos are as well. Also on brighteon.com. Alex Collier Official 2 is where he does the webinars with JP and James. Go and support them almost every Friday. He did not do a webinar for a couple weeks, I think. So 16th, and then the next one is the 30th, which I will be transcribing hopefully sometime this week if I get time. So I can do a video next week. But go and support Alex. I love all of you guys. Thank you so much for being my soul family and tuning into me. It was one rough year, and I'm glad it's over. I'm glad the holidays are over, and I need to pack up all my Christmas decorations. Hopefully I'll get that done Friday. Apparently Friday, January 6th is the real Christmas. But it's also what they call the Women's Christmas. If Danu's Irish Herb Garden, she talks about it. She just put out a video about 6th of January being like a women's Christmas. And basically it's a day to thank the women folk. And all women get together, friends get together. They either go out to eat or they have a potluck together and they just have fun. And the men folk get to stay home and do all the work and just appreciate the women. So I thought that was awesome. And hopefully Friday I will get to do something fun with that. But I know, and she said, put away all your decorations because if you have them up past the 6th of January, it's supposed to be bad luck. So anyway, my plan is to get all my stuff put away to move on. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all of you. I haven't gotten to any of my comments in a few weeks because of work. So hopefully I'll get to do that soon. Thank you so much for watching. And again, as I always say, continue to be the lighthouse, shining your light as bright as you can so that those lost ships at sea in the darkness can find their way home to us. Okay? So I love all of you. I'm going to give you a whole big hug, big hug, big hug. And so say we all. And we will see you next time. Love ya. Bye.